Welcome to Zoe Stories. When pretending turned into my truth. The first time I tried on a dress, it was meant to be a joke. A dare from a friend, a moment of curiosity. I never imagined it would evolve into something that would redefine my life, my identity, and everything I thought I knew about myself. I'm Erin, 23, living in a bustling city apartment with my girlfriend, Isabella. To the outside world, I'm a regular guy, working long hours at a marketing firm, spending weekends with friends, maintaining a life that seems entirely conventional. But beneath that facade, I harbored a secret desire, one I barely admitted even to myself. The thrill of stepping into a world that felt different, softer, more intoxicating. It all began late one Friday evening. Isabella had gone to a friend's birthday party, leaving me alone with the apartment and the quiet hum of the city outside. Normally, I'd spend the night gaming or binge-watching some mindless series, but something pulled me toward the closet, a section I had never dared to explore fully. Hidden among the coats and jackets were items I had secretly collected: silky dresses, soft blouses, delicate skirts, shoes with tiny, unassuming heels, and a wig that I had never worn. I stared at them for a moment, heart racing. There was a thrill in imagining what it would feel like to step fully into this other persona, to explore an identity I had only dared to glimpse in secret. The air felt different somehow, charged with anticipation and fear. My hands trembled as I picked up the first item, a deep burgundy dress, soft to the touch. Just a little experiment, I whispered to myself. No one has to know. As I changed in the privacy of my bedroom, a mix of excitement and terror pulsed through me. The dress hugged my body in ways I never thought possible, accentuating curves I didn't know I had. Slipping on the wig, brushing it until it framed my face perfectly, and carefully applying the makeup I had painstakingly practiced in secret, I felt transformed. Not just physically, but emotionally. The man in the mirror was gone. Instead, staring back at me was someone I had only ever imagined in fleeting moments, beautiful, delicate, and utterly captivating. I spent hours experimenting, walking around the apartment in my heels, learning to balance and move with the grace I had only observed in other women. Every step, every sway, was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. My hands brushed over my arms, smoothing the fabric, and for the first time, I felt a strange alignment between how I looked and how I felt inside. Then there was Isabella. Even though she wasn't home, the thought of her presence, even just as a memory, made my heart race. What would she think if she saw me like this? Would she laugh, judge, or, God forbid, reject me? The thought gnawed at me, but I couldn't stop myself. There is something addictive about this transformation, this temporary escape from the rigid boundaries of my life. I imagined telling her one day, showing her the person I had become when the apartment was empty, the world quiet. Would she understand? Could she accept this side of me? The questions hovered in the air like ghosts, both thrilling and terrifying. But that night, alone and wrapped in the soft silk of the burgundy dress, something shifted. I didn't just feel like I was pretending. For the first time, I felt real. My reflection smiled back at me, confident, bold, and undeniably feminine. A truth I had denied for years whispered through me, saying, "This is who you are, whether you admit it or not." The sound of Isabella unlocking the door made me freeze. My heart lurched. I had never been caught like this before, never faced the possibility that my secret could be discovered at any moment. I barely had time to shove the dress aside and hide the wig when she stepped into the apartment, humming a cheerful tune, completely oblivious to the transformation that had just taken place. "Hey, Erin," she called, dropping her coat onto the chair. "Didn't expect you to be up so late." I forced a laugh, trying to sound normal, my hands still trembling from the adrenaline. "Yeah, just waiting for you," I said, my voice cracking slightly. Isabella's presence was a reminder of the life I had before this transformation, a life of normalcy, routine, and careful secrecy. But as I watched her move through the apartment, laughing softly at a message on her phone, I knew something had changed within me. That night had planted a seed, a tiny, insistent spark that whispered I couldn't go back to just being Erin. Not entirely. I lay awake that night, thinking about the reflection I had seen, feeling the silk against my skin, the wig still fragrant with a scent of newness, the makeup faintly glimmering under the moonlight. Pretending had shifted into something more profound. A secret indulgence had begun to blur into truth. And from that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. Every decision, every hidden moment, would carry the weight of this dual existence. The thrill of transformation came with risks, and the stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. Little did I know, the first step into that secret world was only the beginning. Soon, the boundaries between pretending and living my truth would shatter entirely, forcing me to confront desires, fears, and consequences I had never anticipated. The adventure had begun. The weekend arrived, and with it, the city's rhythm shifted. Streets that were quiet on weekdays now buzzed with people, laughter spilling from cafes and bars, the distant hum of traffic mixing with music from nearby shops. But in my apartment, a different kind of energy thrummed, an electric, secretive pulse that came from the knowledge of what I had discovered about myself. I couldn't stop thinking about the night I had first transformed. Every glance in the mirror, every brush of my fingers over the smooth fabric of a dress, every careful application of makeup replayed in my mind. It was addictive, intoxicating, like tasting something forbidden that you couldn't forget. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't just curiosity, it was who I wanted to be, at least part of the time. Alone in the apartment, I let myself explore further. I opened the drawer where I kept the rest of my secret collection. Skirts of varying lengths, silky blouses, delicate jewelry, and shoes that made my heart race. I ran my fingers over the textures, feeling an anticipation I had never experienced in my regular life. Each piece seemed to call out to me, promising a new way to feel alive, to feel myself fully. I picked a deep emerald dress that I had bought on a whim weeks ago, its fabric soft and clingy. As I slipped it over my shoulders, I felt a shiver run down my spine, not from cold, but from excitement. I adjusted the hem, feeling the weight of the fabric against my legs, the subtle sway with every movement, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. Next came the wig, a long cascade of chestnut hair that framed my face perfectly. I adjusted it carefully, making sure it didn't reveal the edges of my real hair, and then moved to the makeup. Eyeshadow, mascara, a hint of blush, and lipstick. Each stroke was deliberate, meticulous, transforming me further with every motion. When I finally looked in the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. The reflection staring back was confident, delicate, and radiant, a version of me I hadn't dared to embrace before. And yet, with the thrill came fear. Every noise outside the apartment, every creak of the floorboards, made me tense. What if Isabella came home early? What if someone knocked on the door? My heart raced as I imagined being discovered like this, frozen in the persona I had grown to love. But the fear was entwined with excitement, a heady mix that made every movement, every glance in the mirror, feel alive. I practiced walking in my heels, each step a careful balance of grace and control. At first, it was awkward. My legs shook, and my posture felt unnatural. But gradually, I found a rhythm, a sway that felt organic, like the transformation wasn't just in my clothes or makeup, it was in the way I carried myself, in the way I breathed and moved. Each step reinforced the duality of my life, the Erin the world knew, and the Erin, or perhaps more accurately, the person I became when I embraced this secret world. Hours passed, and the city outside began to quiet. The thrill of being alone, hidden, and transformed created a bubble around me. I practiced expressions, smiles, even small gestures, how I would sit, cross my legs, tilt my head, all the subtle things that made a woman appear confident, natural, and alluring. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and utterly consuming. But this wasn't just play anymore. I felt it in my chest, a quiet insistence that this was who I wanted to be. The reflection in the mirror was no longer a mask. It was a version of myself that demanded recognition, that insisted I accept it. And with that realization came a deeper, more complicated fear. If Isabella discovered this side of me, would she accept it? Would she reject me? Or would she see the truth I had only just begun to understand about myself? The first real test came unexpectedly. A text from Isabella. "Hey, I'm running late. Shouldn't be home until much later. Want me to pick something up for dinner?" My heart jumped. Alone in the apartment, I had an unexpected window to explore further without fear of immediate discovery. But the message also carried a subtle tension, a reminder that the world outside could intrude at any moment, that my secret life existed in a fragile balance with my everyday one. I spent the rest of the evening experimenting with different outfits, pairing skirts with blouses, trying on shoes with varying heel heights, and practicing makeup combinations I had never dared before. Each new look revealed something different, shades that made my eyes pop, fabrics that accentuated curves in surprising ways, hairstyles that transformed my entire aura. I was discovering not just clothing or appearance, but an identity that felt increasingly undeniable. Yet, even in the midst of this exhilaration, doubts crept in. Was I deluding myself? Was this just fantasy, a temporary thrill I would eventually regret? The line between who I was and who I was becoming blurred, leaving me both terrified and desperate. Every moment of joy was accompanied by a shadow of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of losing control over this dual life I had started to embrace. Then, just as I was experimenting with a soft lavender dress and matching heels, I heard it, a faint knock at the door. My heart leapt into my throat. Who could it be at this hour? My pulse pounded as I froze, every nerve alert. The knock came again, insistent. I peeked through the peephole. A neighbor, probably checking in, someone familiar, but not someone I wanted to confront like this. Panic surged. I had only moments to react. I hastily hid the dress and wig under the bed, replaced my heels with sneakers, and tried to compose myself. When I opened the door, I forced a casual smile. "Hey, everything okay?" the neighbor asked, a hint of curiosity in their voice. "Yeah, all good," I replied, my voice steady, though my heart raced. "Just catching up on some late-night work." They nodded, satisfied for now, and walked away. I exhaled, my body shaking as I leaned against the doorframe. The adrenaline was intense, but beneath it was a growing certainty. This wasn't just a game anymore. The thrill of transformation, the joy of exploring this hidden identity, was changing me. Pretending had already begun to merge with reality, and I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. As I sat back down, dressed once more in the emerald dress and heels, I realized that the real challenge was only beginning. It wasn't just about appearance anymore, it was about embracing this side of myself fully, navigating the risks of exposure, and confronting the complex emotions that came with living a double life. And in that quiet, electric moment, I made a silent promise. No matter what it took, I would explore this truth, live it, and discover who I truly was, even if it meant risking everything I had known before. The following week was a whirlwind of emotions, each day blending seamlessly into the next, yet filled with a growing tension I couldn't ignore. I found myself glancing at the hidden drawer in my bedroom more often, drawn to the secret that had started to consume me. The thrill of transformation had taken on a life of its own, refusing to be contained to late nights or brief moments alone. Isabella, as usual, moved through her week with effortless grace, unaware of the changes stirring quietly in me. Her laughter, her subtle teasing, and the soft way she adjusted her hair before leaving for work each morning, all of it became magnified in my mind, reminders of a life I had built alongside her and the parallel life I was now exploring in secret. That Saturday morning, when the apartment was quiet and Isabella had gone to meet a friend, I allowed myself to fully embrace my hidden world. I carefully selected a sapphire blue dress, one that clung to my frame in just the right places and flowed gracefully with each step. The shoes, a pair of slender heels I had purchased weeks earlier but never worn, awaited like old friends, and I slipped into them with practiced precision. The wig followed, cascading over my shoulders in soft waves, framing my face in a way that felt both unfamiliar and intoxicatingly right. I applied makeup slowly, deliberately, savoring each stroke, each adjustment. By the time I stood in front of the mirror, I was no longer just Erin. I was someone entirely new, someone bold, radiant, and impossibly alive. But this transformation came with new challenges. As I experimented with poses and movements, practicing expressions that felt natural, I realized that I was not just playing a game anymore. This was a reflection of something deeper, something fundamental about who I was. The thrill of cross-dressing had evolved into a compulsion, an identity I couldn't ignore. And then came the first close call. A sudden knock at the door made my heart leap. My pulse raced as I scrambled, barely managing to slip out of the heels before hiding the dress behind the curtains. Peeking through the peephole, I saw the building manager, a stern woman named Mrs. Hensley, who occasionally stopped by for maintenance checks. "Hi, Erin," she called through the door. "Got a minute?" "Just a quick check on the smoke alarms." I swallowed hard. A minute could ruin everything. I plastered a casual smile on my face and opened the door. "Of course. Come in," I said, keeping my voice steady. Mrs. Hensley stepped inside, clipboard in hand. Her gaze swept the room, but she seemed oblivious to the hidden items scattered behind the curtain. As she inspected the smoke alarms, I stood frozen, my mind racing with the implications of discovery. What would she think if she saw me like this? Would she judge me, tell someone, or laugh? She finally left, satisfied that the apartment was in order, and I exhaled, trembling. The adrenaline coursing through my veins left me both exhilarated and terrified. The reality of my double life had just hit me. Any moment could bring exposure. Any small misstep could unravel everything. By the afternoon, my curiosity overcame my fear. I began experimenting with combinations I had never dared before, skirts paired with delicate blouses, jewelry that accentuated my features, and makeup styles that transformed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. Each new look revealed a layer of my personality I had never acknowledged, a confidence that grew with every glance in the mirror. Yet with confidence came vulnerability. I started noticing the way my reflection moved with the clothes, the way my body swayed in heels, the subtle power in the tilt of my head or the curve of my smile. Each moment was intoxicating, but it also carried a weight, a fear that this secret world could be shattered at any moment. Then, an unexpected text from Isabella. "Running a bit late. Don't wait up." My heart jumped. A thrill surged through me, knowing I had more time to indulge in this secret persona, but the tension remained. The longer I spent like this, the harder it became to switch back to the life I had before. Pretending was slipping into something dangerously real. I wandered the apartment, experimenting with movement, practicing gestures I had only observed in passing, and testing how my voice changed when I spoke softly or flirtatiously at myself in the mirror. I was discovering nuances I had never noticed, subtleties in posture, expression, and tone that brought the character to life. Each discovery reinforced the addictive pull of this secret identity, a pull I could not resist. Hours passed, and the apartment fell into a hushed quiet. I sank onto the couch, heels dangling from my feet, dress soft against my skin, wig slightly askew. My reflection in the window, dimly illuminated by the city lights, seemed almost otherworldly. I stared, mesmerized, caught between exhilaration and fear. Pretending was no longer enough. I wanted to live this truth fully, but the risk of discovery loomed like a shadow. The next day brought another layer of tension. Isabella mentioned inviting her friend over unexpectedly that evening. My chest tightened. How could I entertain someone while juggling the secret? My mind raced through possibilities. Hide everything, revert to my usual self, or somehow risk being discovered. Each option carried consequences I wasn't ready to face. By evening, I had to make a choice. I selected a dress, careful to make it elegant yet subtle, a style that could pass unnoticed if Isabella's friend arrived. I slipped into my heels, adjusted the wig, and applied makeup with precision. Every motion was calculated, every glance in the mirror measured. The thrill of transformation coursed through me, but so did the fear. This was no longer a private indulgence. The risk of exposure made each movement more intense, more electric. As the doorbell rang, I froze, heart pounding in my chest. Isabella's friend stood there, smiling innocently. My mind scrambled for explanations, excuses, anything to maintain my secret. But as I opened the door, I realized something startling. Part of me didn't want to hide. The reflection in the mirror, the person I had become, demanded recognition. And for the first time, I felt the weight of living two lives, the ordinary and the extraordinary, colliding in a single moment. That night, as Isabella laughed with her friend in the living room, I retreated to my secret corner, heels off, dress slightly wrinkled, wig displaced. I was exhilarated, terrified, and more alive than I had ever been. Pretending had started to merge with reality, and I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. My world was changing, and there was no turning back. The transformation had taken hold, not just in my appearance, but in my heart, mind, and spirit. Every choice, every hidden moment, carried the weight of this new identity. The line between Aaron and the person I was becoming blurred further, leaving me both exhilarated and frightened for the challenges that lay ahead. The apartment felt smaller that night, every shadow exaggerated, every sound amplified. The city outside pulsed with life, but inside, a storm brewed. I had crossed a threshold, fully immersed in the identity I had been hiding, and now the risks I had ignored began to manifest. Isabella had unexpectedly returned early from her evening out, an unfamiliar quiet in her step. I had just slipped into a fitted red dress, one that hugged my curves, paired with sleek black heels that made my legs look longer than I had ever imagined. My makeup was flawless, or at least it seemed flawless in the mirror, and my wig fell perfectly over my shoulders. I was ready to embrace the person I had become. Then I heard the key turn in the lock. My heart skipped, thumped, and raced all at once. Every instinct screamed for me to retreat, to hide, to become Aaron again. But there was no time. Isabella stepped inside, humming softly, a bag of groceries in her hands. "Hey, you're home early," she said casually, glancing around. My mind raced. Should I speak, pretend to be Aaron, or let her see me? I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down, the thrill and fear tangled in a single, impossible knot. I chose neither fully. I froze, letting the silence stretch, letting her take in the unfamiliar sight. Her eyes flicked to my heels, to the way the dress clung to my frame, and then back to my face. A flicker of curiosity passed over her features, but she didn't speak immediately. The tension between us thickened, a palpable thread of suspense that left me trembling. Before either of us could react further, a sudden knock at the door shattered the fragile moment. My pulse soared. Who could it be now? I barely had time to glance toward the window when another knock followed, urgent, demanding. I cursed under my breath, realizing that my world had suddenly contracted to a dangerous, suffocating bubble of secrecy and exposure. Isabella moved toward the door, and I instinctively followed, heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She opened it to reveal a neighbor I didn't expect. Mark, a colleague of hers from work. His casual greeting, "Hey, hope I'm not intruding," sent a chill down my spine. I forced a smile, my voice higher-pitched than usual, a subtle tremor betraying me. No, not at all, come in," I said, fumbling slightly with my words. Every step I took in heels felt heavier, every movement a test of my poise under the intense pressure of being discovered. Mark entered, chatting with Isabella, oblivious to the tension vibrating through me. I moved carefully to the couch, trying to maintain composure, adjusting the dress and wig as subtly as possible. My heart thumped violently, each beat a reminder that one wrong gesture, one glance, could shatter my carefully maintained disguise. The conversation flowed, but I felt trapped in a cage of anxiety and exhilaration. Every laugh from Isabella, every casual remark from Mark, was amplified, echoing in my mind. I wanted to respond, to speak naturally, but fear gripped me, leaving my words measured, calculated, unnatural. I was performing, not just for them, but for myself, testing the boundaries of this identity I had embraced in secret. Then came the subtle disaster. The wig slipped slightly, just enough for the edge to show. My hands flew to adjust it, heart hammering as I prayed neither Isabella nor Mark noticed. My fingers trembled against the hairpiece, and I realized that no amount of preparation could fully shield me from these moments of vulnerability. Mark, oblivious, continued talking about mundane office matters, and Isabella laughed at a joke I barely heard. But the fear remained, an undercurrent that made every second stretch into eternity. I was acutely aware of my reflection in the darkened window, the duality of my existence staring back at me, a tension between Aaron, the man everyone knew, and the version of me that had been hiding in plain sight. Minutes felt like hours. I shifted slightly on the couch, careful not to reveal too much, careful not to move too fast. Every step, every tilt of the head, every flicker of an expression was a test of control. And as I sat there, I realized how intoxicating the risk had become. The thrill of being on the edge, of teetering between exposure and secrecy, had entwined itself with the joy I felt in this identity. Suddenly, Mark leaned back in his chair, a casual remark that pierced the tension like a needle. "You know, you've changed in a good way. Something different about you lately," he said, his gaze flicking ever so slightly in my direction. My chest tightened. Was he noticing the subtle cues? The voice, the posture, the aura I had crafted so meticulously? Isabella chuckled, unaware of my panic. "Really? What do you mean?" she asked, tilting her head. My mind raced. Any explanation could betray me, yet silence might seem suspicious. My fingers clenched the hem of the dress beneath me, seeking comfort in the soft fabric. Mark smiled, oblivious to the tension he had ignited. "Just you seem happier. More confident. I can't put my finger on it, but something's different." I felt the floor shift beneath me. Could he sense the truth I had worked so hard to conceal? My heart pounded, sweat prickling at my temples. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to shed this identity and retreat into the familiar safety of Aaron. But a stubborn part of me, the part that had grown addicted to the thrill, whispered otherwise. I forced a laugh, trying to deflect, to act casual, but my voice betrayed me, slightly higher, slightly strained. Both Isabella and Mark glanced at me, curious, but they didn't question further. Relief mingled with terror in a dizzying mix. I was safe for now. As they continued to talk, I realized something profound. This identity wasn't just a disguise or a hobby. It had become a part of me, inseparable from my desires, my fears, and the core of who I was. Pretending had evolved into truth, and there was no turning back. Each heartbeat, each careful movement, each whisper of fabric against skin was a reminder of the life I had begun to live, a life filled with risk, exhilaration, and discovery. But the night was far from over. The danger of exposure lingered like a shadow over the room, a constant reminder that one misstep could unravel everything. And in that tense, electrifying moment, I realized that embracing this truth meant navigating a world that might never fully accept it, and that the stakes had never been higher. The evening stretched on, thick with tension, each tick of the clock echoing like a drum in my chest. The thrill of being caught, of straddling the line between exposure and concealment, had grown intoxicating and terrifying. Isabella and Mark chatted comfortably in the living room, oblivious to the storm of anxiety swirling just a few feet away. I moved cautiously, heels clicking softly against the hardwood, adjusting my dress and wig with near-obsessive care. Every glance in the mirror caught my eye, every reflection reminded me of the dual life I was living. The exhilaration of transformation had evolved into something much deeper, a truth I could no longer ignore, even as the fear of discovery tightened around me like a vice. Then it happened. The sound of keys jingling at the door sent a cold shiver down my spine. Another visitor, this time, someone I hadn't anticipated. Isabella's cousin, A bold and curious young woman named Lila had decided to stop by unannounced. Panic surged through me. My carefully maintained disguise, my fragile sense of control, was suddenly at risk of crumbling in an instant. Isabella welcomed Lila in warmly, her laughter filling the apartment. My pulse raced. I tried to shrink into the shadows, hoping my presence wouldn't be noticed. But in heels, draped in a snug red dress with a wig slightly off-center, blending into the background was impossible. Lila's eyes immediately landed on me. "Whoa. I didn't know Aaron was home," she exclaimed, her tone light, yet tinged with curiosity. My stomach dropped. Every muscle in my body tensed, my mind scrambling for an excuse, a way to remain unseen, invisible, normal. Isabella glanced at me, eyebrows raised. "Oh, he's just, her voice faltered slightly, as if sensing my unease. I took a deep breath, forcing a calm smile, and decided to confront the situation head-on. "Hi, Lila," I said softly, my voice higher than usual, trembling slightly. "I was just trying something new." Lila's gaze lingered, sharp and inquisitive. "Trying something new? Like what?" The question hung in the air, charged with curiosity and suspicion. Before I could respond, Isabella jumped in, her voice lilting. "He's experimenting with fashion and style. Just a little fun, you know." She laughed, but the tension didn't dissipate. Lila's eyes narrowed slightly, as if she sensed more beneath the surface. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Could I explain it? Could I risk honesty? Or would I retreat, pretend nothing was happening, and hope the moment passed? The line between truth and pretense blurred. My reflection in the polished wooden floor caught my eye, the duality of my existence glaring back at me, Aaron versus the person I had become. Then disaster struck. A sudden slip of my heel, a tiny misstep as I adjusted the dress, drew both Lila and Isabella's attention. Lila's eyes widened, and my heart leapt into my throat. I steadied myself, forcing a casual laugh, hoping the slip would appear natural. But Lila wasn't convinced. "That's quite the outfit, Aaron. I mean, wow," she said, her voice laced with amusement and intrigue. My stomach nodded. Every word she spoke felt like a spotlight, illuminating my secret in a way that left me vulnerable and exposed. The conversation continued, but I could feel the tension coiling tighter around me. Each laugh, each casual remark from Isabella, each curious glance from Lila reminded me that my secret world was teetering on the brink of collapse. The exhilaration of transformation had become a dangerous game, one I could no longer control entirely. And then, the unexpected twist. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A message from a number I didn't recognize flashed across the screen. "I know your secret. Meet me or everyone finds out." My hands shook. My mind raced. How had they found out? Who could possibly know? The apartment felt suffocating, the air thick with tension. Isabella and Lila continued talking, oblivious to the storm inside me, but I could barely focus. My secret, the very identity I had nurtured, cherished, and feared being discovered, was under immediate threat. I excused myself, claiming I needed to make a call, and rushed to my bedroom. The dress clung to my skin, the wig slightly askew, and my heart pounded in my chest. I stared at the message, my mind whirling. Was this a prank? A threat? Or had someone truly discovered the truth I had hidden so carefully? The room felt smaller, the shadows darker, as I debated my next move. I couldn't ignore the message, couldn't pretend it didn't exist. But stepping outside, facing whoever had sent it, meant risking everything. The life I had built with Isabella, the secret I had guarded, and the identity I had embraced. A sudden knock at my bedroom door startled me. Isabella's voice called softly, "Aaron? Everything okay?" My pulse skyrocketed. I had to hide, to protect my secret, yet I also felt the pull of honesty, of finally confronting the person I was becoming. I peeked through the slightly ajar door, heart hammering. Isabella's concerned gaze met mine, and for a brief, fleeting moment, I considered revealing everything. But fear won out. I smiled weakly, shaking my head. Yeah, just a little headache. I lied, my voice quivering. She nodded, seemingly satisfied, and left. I sank onto the bed, heels dangling, heart still racing. The message on my phone burned in my mind, a symbol of the danger now inseparable from my secret life. Pretending had turned into truth, but that truth came with stakes I could no longer ignore. The night stretched on, each second a reminder of the precarious balance I had created. My reflection in the mirror, distorted by shadows, seemed to whisper at me, "Who are you really? And how far are you willing to go to protect this truth?" Every choice, every step, every heartbeat carried the weight of exposure. And as the city outside slept, unaware of the chaos within my apartment, I realized the next decision I made could change everything. The apartment had grown quiet, but the tension lingered, thick as fog. I sat on the edge of the bed, the heels I had spent hours mastering now discarded carelessly beside me. My reflection in the mirror stared back, unflinching, showing both the Aaron everyone knew and the version of me I had chosen to embrace. The message on my phone still glowed, a chilling reminder that my secret was no longer mine alone. Whoever had sent it knew everything, knew about the nights I transformed, the thrill I hid, and the life I had carefully crafted in silence. I swallowed hard, my pulse echoing in my ears. A sudden sound, the faint creak of the apartment door, made me freeze. My heart raced uncontrollably. Was it Isabella returning again? Or someone else, the person behind the message? I moved toward the door, careful not to make a sound, clutching the dress I had worn earlier like a shield. I peeked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, dimly lit by the soft glow of the corridor lights. Relief mingled with paranoia. The silence was almost louder than the knocks and footsteps from earlier. My mind spun, each thought more frantic than the last. Could I truly protect this truth? Or was it slipping through my fingers, ready to shatter with one wrong move? Then the phone buzzed again. A new message. "You can't hide forever. Come meet me, or it all ends tonight." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I had no choice. This wasn't just a threat anymore, it was a demand. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to discard the identity I had embraced. But another part of me, the part that had tasted freedom, confidence, and the thrill of being my true self, rebelled. The apartment suddenly felt suffocating. I paced, the heels on the floor clicking intermittently, each step echoing my internal conflict. Pretending had become my reality, and now reality demanded a reckoning. I glanced toward the mirror again. The person staring back at me wasn't entirely Aaron, nor entirely the persona I had created in secret. They were both conflicted, vulnerable, and dangerously alive. I realized, with a mixture of fear and exhilaration, that this was no longer just a game. My choices, my identity, and my secrets were teetering on the edge of exposure. A sudden knock at the door shattered the silence. My breath caught in my throat. Another visitor? The one behind the messages? My hands shook as I moved cautiously toward the door, unsure if I should face the danger or flee into the shadows. The doorknob rattled slowly, deliberately. My heart pounded in my chest. Whoever it was, they were here, waiting for me. And I knew that once I opened this door, nothing would ever be the same. The shadows of the room seemed to stretch, merging with the tension that had built over weeks, months, perhaps even years. My secret life, my transformation, the person I had become, it all hung in the balance, fragile and exposed. And then the door clicked, just slightly, a whisper of movement that set my pulse racing. I froze, trapped between fear and anticipation. Who was waiting on the other side? Would my secret be revealed? Or could I somehow navigate this danger without losing everything I had become? The answer lingered in the air, suspended like a heartbeat, as the story, my story, hung on the edge of uncertainty.